I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. First item of business is our public comment period. This is where we allow any speaker 2 minutes per speaker, up to 10 minutes total, to address the board regarding any subject that is pertinent. And I have to call 3 times for that, so anyone wish to speak? Anyone wish to speak during the public comment period? The last one, anyone wish to speak for the public comment period? Hearing none, that section of our agenda is closed. We'll go to item 3.1, the approval of county board minutes for the December 12th, 2017 meeting.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Ward, to approve the county board minutes of December 12th, 2017. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries with all voting aye. Item 4.1 and 2, acknowledge receipt of the approved committee minutes for the Land Records Committee of October 6, 2017, and the Planning Commission for October 19, 2017.
I move to acknowledge the receipt of those committees.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Cavesi, to approve both sets of minutes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries with all voting aye. Consent comments and approval of the agenda. Mr. Fritz.
I just have one short comment.
Okay. Okay. Commissioner Ward.
Yes, I'd like to pull 6.1 for a separate vote, please.
Okay.
And 6.14 for a separate vote, please.
Okay. Commissioner Olson.
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Jacob.
I'd like to pull item 6.12, and I'll have one comment.
Okay, I'm confused. Did you both pull 6.12?
1-4.
I'm 1-4.
Oh, just 1-4?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you pulled 2 of them. I'm sorry. Okay,
I
so
got 6.1 on the first page.
Okay, we got 6.1, 6.12, and 6.14 pulled. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, very good. County Attorney Solomon.
I don't have anything tonight.
Okay. We'll then go to the approval of the agenda.
Move approved as amended.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Olson, to approve the consent agenda as amended. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries with all voting aye. Mr. Fritz.
I'll read the consent business into the record. 6.1 was pulled. 6.2, approved county board appointments to the 2018 boards and committees. 6.3, approved safe and secure courthouse initiative grant agreement to purchase new magnetometers. 6.4, approved professional services agreement for Tom Weber Jail Advisory Committee Facilitator. 6.5, approved resolution accepting State of Minnesota Office of Justice Programs 2018 SMART Grant for the Winona County Sexual Assault Interagency Council. 6.6, approved monthly resolution. 6.7, accept Child Welfare Juvenile Justice Screening 2018 Grant Award. 6.8, approve interpreter agreement between Project Fine and Winona County. 6.9, approve resolution accepting grant award and 2018 State of Minnesota Snowmobile Safety Enforcement Grant. 6.10, approve special benefit tax levy resolution and approve budget for fiscal year 2018. 6.11, approve transfer of funds for retiree insurance for period of 01/01/2017 to 12/31/2017. Item 6.12 was pulled. 6.13 is approved the 2018 fee schedule. 6.14 was pulled. And 6.15 is confirmed payment of disbursements. That concludes the consent agenda.
Commissioner Ward.
I apologize. I did have one question under, if I could, under 6.4, the professional service agreement with Tom Weber.
Sure.
My question is the accountability of his contract and everything, and how, and maybe at our first planning session at January 2nd, we can discuss how Mr. Weber is going to relate the information. Are we going to wait for the final report, or are we going to get updates periodically to know where the process is going? And maybe we could discuss that at that January 2nd meeting to get some kind of idea, because at this point in time, I don't know if I'm waiting for a magic report to give me all the information or if there'll be updates along the way. Okay? So with that, I'll move to approve the consent business as read.
Second?
We have a motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Jacob, to approve the consent agenda. Those parts that were presented. All those in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries with all voting aye. Next item we'll go to is 6.1, which is now 7.01, which is the adopt resolution for elected official salary for county attorney, county sheriff, county recorder, and county auditor-treasurer. Commissioner Ward.
I just want to be consistent and maintain my no vote on that.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move approval of 6.1.
Second?
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacob, seconded by Commissioner Kavesi, to approve 6.1, which is the adopting the resolution for elected official salaries. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries with all voting aye except for Marshall Ward, who voted nay. Next item is 6.12, which is now 7.02, which is the adoption of the 2018 levy resolution. Commissioner Jacob, I believe.
Yeah, maybe just to get discussion going, I'm gonna make a motion here. I'm gonna make a motion to set the 2018 levy at 5% while directing our administration to formally review building consolidation options.
Do we have a second?
Point of clarification.
Commissioner Ward.
If I second, I still can vote against, correct? That's what we learned at our last Robert's Rule at the AMC meeting. I would like to discuss it, but I'm still going to vote no.
I thought the maker and seconder of a motion had to vote.
I know the maker can't vote against their own motion.
Right.
Speak against it. I don't have my Robert's Rules
But this-
book. I should have brought it.
The maker can't speak against it?
You can second it, but you can't speak against it. But you can vote against it, but you can't speak against it.
How about I'll second it for purpose of
Okay,
discussion. How's
go ahead.
that?
That's fine. That's good.
Okay.
We'll use Bob's rules tonight.
Okay.
Jim's rules.
Well,
No, okay. But let Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to get a second and get it open for discussion. It's no secret, for a number of years here, I've tried to get the county board to look at the building consolidation issue. I certainly see that 6% is really what it takes to balance our budget. I want to make some meaningful difference in our budget, and this is an item that does have a significant impact on our budget going forward. I guess it's hard to. It would be easy for me to just say 6% is on the table. I'm going to vote against it, and see where that goes. But this is an option that I could support. It would move my hope to get the county to look at what our space, the space we have, how we're utilizing it, the condition of this building, and where things might go in the future. So that's kind of my mentality behind coming up with that number and wanting to try to move that forward.
Well, did somebody
Pat Mogus trying to get your
Well,
attention.
I just wanted to state at 6%, we're still expenses over revenue at 683,624. So with 6%, we still actually don't have a balanced budget, that we're $683,000 that we're taking out of the reserves.
Yeah, I understand that. My hope is that through looking at restructuring of our building consolidation, that we can improve that number in the future. And I understand that we're not going to solve the budget in 1 year, but I'd like to get that topic on the table to maybe make significant impact in the future. So it would mean for 2018 taking another % from reserves. I understand that.
Commissioner Olson.
I support, wholeheartedly support the building consolidation. I don't think it can happen without an investment of sorts. So that initially it's going to cost money. I believe is what the last consolidation study came up with. We needed space, and maybe that space can somehow be part of the jail study. Create the space to consolidate. And I don't think it can happen right away in 2018 where you could experience the savings. So I'm just going to throw that out there.
Commissioner Kovesi.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a strong proponent of the building consolidation. I think we're looking at that anyway, even with the 6%. So I would have to say, if we're even at 6%, if we're 680,000 expenses over revenue, I'd have to be against this motion. I would have to see where we would be making up the difference, what programs we would be amending or disbanding, or, just what the 1% difference would do to the budget.
Was it you? Commissioner Ward.
Yep. Well, it's no secret I have a great disdain for property taxes. Always have, probably always will. And doing a little research, I didn't realize property taxes predate income taxes in this United States of America. So property taxes have been around a long time. Of course, government likes it because it's a stable thing. You can just calculate, I need this X many of dollars, and you get it. You don't depend on income or anything else. You tax it, you receive it. And to me, that is, of course, a very regressive tax. And with the economy of my constituents, and this is nothing new, ag community, the Social Security people, they cannot absorb a 6% in their way of operating. Yes, many of our services are mandated by the state. I have issues with that, and I think we need to keep pushing back on that. But some of our services aren't mandated, and we really need to control our spending and look at how we're doing things. Now, I do appreciate all the hard work. I look forward to Ms. Johnson being in the role along with Mr. Fritz and taking that human service budget and getting a handle on it, both increasing the revenues and maybe decreasing the expenses, because that is a big part of our budget. So I won't even support a 5%. Yes, combining the buildings, we have looked at it. I think we continually need to look at it. This building, now with the city of Winona moving forward with maybe doing something with the Hardee's building and everything, it might be the time to do something. Thank you.
Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah, I think that my frustration is that we did a relatively extensive building study a couple of years ago, and I hear everyone saying, yeah, we need to look at it, but it's not moving forward. And there is expenses that need to go into this building, and we keep kicking that down the road. We knew a couple of years ago this building needs $600,000 worth of HVAC and roofing. My goal would be to maybe try to find a number that the entire board could get behind, 5%, and do something, take a significant step tonight to actually make a difference in the budget in the future. It's hard for me to just say, I don't support a tax increase if I don't support a solution. So this is my attempt to try to impact our budget. And the reserves can handle 1% more. So that's my case for 5% and to formally get building consolidation being reviewed.
Any other comments? Are we ready to vote? We have a motion and excuse me, we have a motion by Jacob and seconded by Pomeroy. First time I can recall saying that. But to approve a 5% increase and to move formally along in the building consolidation process. Is that correctly stated?
Yep.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye. Yeah.
Okay, motion fails. Back to the floor. Do we hear a motion? Really needing one.
Let me just ask a question, if I may, of Mr. Fritz. What, so we're 680,000?
684,000.
4,000? What, at what level does that leave our reserves, percentage-wise?
I don't have it right in front of me, but it's about, the unrestricted reserves are around 19 million.
Yeah, as I said, we're actually below the amount that we're supposed to have.
Yeah, we're below the policy amount. Yeah, it's in the budget, and I could pull it up, but maybe to make it just a general statement, the reserves are below the policy, 40% policy threshold that the board adopted. But our day-to-day reserves are at the lowest point in the year, about a little over $11 million. So there's ample capacity in the reserve to deal with the $175,000 that 1% differential would.
I would just point out quick that budget growth actually increases that,
Yeah.
that amount required under the formula.
So it goes up, and that,
So,
so I'm not sure exactly what you're.
Well, because I certainly don't want to fall in the same shoes of the school district.
Right, right.
And with that said, I'm going to make a motion to approve the 6%.
Second.
we have a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Kovesi to establish a levy at a 6% increase. Any comments? Any discussion? Commissioner Jacob, sorry.
I can't support the 6% increase without making some type of plan to try to solve the problem in the future. So my vote would be against the 6%.
May I amend my motion?
You certainly may.
How about I amend my motion to support the 6% with a consolidation plan put forth with estimated costs.
Are you going to second, Commissioner Ward?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Okay.
I agree with, as a
You wanna
seconder,
you-
I would agree with
Okay,
that.
very good. So we have a motion, we have an amended motion to approve the 6% along with a facilities study to be brought before the board at a later date. And that was by Commissioner Olson and by Commissioner Kovesi, the maker, and the amenders. Commissioner Ward?
Well, if we could have those as two separate motions, I definitely would vote for a building consolidation and figure out what we're doing with our facilities. But as a combined motion, I cannot support it.
Okay. Commissioner Jacobs.
So if you'd like to amend the motion to split them into two parts.
You have to,
I would let it live or die on its own.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you called it, Steve.
Part of what I'm trying to do is go to bat for the constituents who want a lower tax levy. So that's why I presented the motion I presented at 5%, which I would support with steps to make a significant impact on the budget in the future. I feel like at 6%, I'm not really making an impact that's helping my constituents who want a lower levy out.
Commissioner, were you done, sir?
Yes.
Commissioner Kadesi.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I'm not sure we could separate this into two motions because it would be a new item for the board to consider that hasn't been on a public announcement. So at the end of the meeting, we could make a request to place this consolidation issue as a formal plan, those kinds of things.
Are you saying that you don't want to consider it this
No,
evening?
I'm saying I'm fine with putting it together,
Okay.
but I don't think it could be a single motion on its own.
Okay.
But the question is then, can it be a combined motion if it hasn't been discussed?
It,
I don't know that we're looking for a parliamentarian on it. I would guess I would suggest that the maker of the original motion was basically saying he would approve X percent as long as we continued our efforts along a certain line, and I certainly think that that's probably in line with what we're certainly allowed to do. So that'll be my thought on it. If somebody wants to tell me I'm wrong, that's fine too.
Somebody
have
wants to take it
discussed
to the
this.
court on our parliamentary procedure, they're free to do that.
Oh, sure they can. They get a court on anything these days. Commissioner Olson?
I think it's important, that we learn from our school district. We want to keep our reserves to our set amount, and even with this, we are going to be a little bit below, but probably safely so. But much less if we lose our rating. It costs our taxpayers a considerable sum in the future.
Commissioner Ward?
I don't like being compared to another board that made a decision after they had lots of community input. At this point, we don't have any community input. I don't know if we're going to look for that, but I guess I don't want to be thrown into the same pot as what another board in this community did. I support wholeheartedly looking at, combining things and putting things together and doing that study.
Any other questions, concerns, comments? Commissioner Jacob, a guest.
Greg, would you consider any number lower than 6%? 5.5%? I understand where the budget needs to be. I want to go to bat for my citizenry, show them that we're all working together to do what we can to give them. A 0.5% isn't going to break our budget, but I'm glad that we're moving. We've come to the conclusion that we need to do some step to make a significant impact on our budget in the future, and where it's not going to solve our budget to be looking at building consolidation. It's a step in the right direction, so I'm happy to see that.
Was that a question put to the maker?
Yes.
You're the maker.
I would accept that. I could. So I could amend it again. Amend.
Issue then goes to the seconder.
What number are you at?
I'd go with 5.5.
That goes to you, Commissioner Kadesi. And I pity the person that's doing the minutes for this meeting. It's going to be tough, Dana, but
the only reason I'm struggling with it is that it pulls more out of the reserves. The 6% was 0, 5.5% is close to 0, so I could support that.
Okay, if
A little
memory,
less than zero.
if memory serves, we have a motion, an original motion to approve 6% with a consolidation study forthcoming, which was added to it, and then amended again to lower the approval rate to 5.5%, which still contains the consolidation study moving forward, correct?
That needs to be voted on.
All it needs to be voted on.
Right.
One motion.
But it's a vote to approve the amendment before the final vote is taken.
Yeah, you've got to vote to amend the amendments first.
The amendment has to be,
Which amendment?
the amendment to the main motion has to be
Or you could,
voted on before the main
Or
motion
what
is
we,
voted.
or we could do, if you wanted to make it real tidy, is you could agree to withdraw all motions and make a new motion.
I'll do that. I'll withdraw my motion.
I would agree.
Maker and seconder agree.
That would
You
make
should
it.
clean up your stuff over there too a little bit.
I
put
will
a
make a
big
motion
X.
for the levy to be set at 5.5% with the building consolidation plan put forth.
I second that motion.
Commissioner Ward.
I have a question for Mr. Moga. Mr. Moga, we used to have a figure for every percent of levy increase that generated X number of dollars, and it used to be like 140,000. Now I'm thinking
174,000, so
100
if we don't do, if we reduce it by the 0.5%, it's 87,327.
Okay. Thank you.
You gonna vote for it?
No.
I was kidding. Okay, any further discussion on the motion that we have in front of us? Commissioner Jacob.
Where I certainly don't want to vote for an increase to taxpayers. I understand that part of what we're tasked for is balancing our budget. And my goal to bring up a lower number was to engage with the board and try to do a service to the people who want less than 6%. So in the spirit of everyone getting as many people on the same page as we can on the board, I'll support the 5.5 and directing administration to look into building consolidation.
Any other comments or concerns or questions? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Next item is, congratulations, by the way. Good discussion. Next item is 6.14, adopt resolution for the 2018 budget, which would, of course, have to reflect the change that just took place in the previous item.
Marcia asked him.
Yes, yes, that's okay.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead.
I am pulling this, and again, I do appreciate the work that's gone on, and as Mr. Fritz reminds me, this is a continued process. It's not a static in one day time, but it's continually, and I hope, like I said, the departments can come up with some cost savings and higher revenue recaptures. I have always said, I have the document in a file at home of mandated services that go back quite some time. And I have always asked, but I've always been in the minority. I've never had support to go through that list and really review what we're doing, how we're doing it, at what level we're doing it, and if we can find some savings there. And as a board, we have not done that. Department heads, I hope, are doing that, and administration is doing that. But as a board, we have not looked at things in a very, and it's not easy, it's difficult. It would mean probably changing, probably eliminating, doing some things different. But with my consistent of wanting a very low levy because of the constituency that I represent, I can't accept this budget. I think there's some things in there that could be reviewed and analyzed and changed to bring it down, so that we wouldn't have had to approve a 5.5% levy plus spending out of reserves. But I'm not against spending out of reserves, because I think if you spend down reserves in your own personal income, when things get a little tight, you get a little more creative and you figure out how to make things work.
Commissioner Jacob.
Well, we all have had the opportunity to go through the budget line by line, and any anything that we question, we can certainly bring up or bring to administration. I've done that, and even more so the last couple of years. And there might be some small numbers to find in there, but nothing that's going to make the kind of difference that we need to make. And I think we're operating as efficiently as we can. And I do agree with your philosophy of not carrying excessive reserves. And when I came in to office almost 6 years ago now, I felt there was more than what we needed in reserve. And I voted consistently year after year to bring that down to where we're at now. But short of setting a new policy on what our reserves should be, we've drawn that down. So at this point, I feel we either need to balance our budget or I don't agree with going any lower than we've looked at that very closely in the past. We need to be responsible, and we need to treat the budget as we would our own budget. And if this was a private company, this is, I think, where we need to be. And being that it's a public company, or it's public money, we don't want to take more than we need from our constituency. I think we've put that number where it needs to be. So I don't know. If you have items that you think are going to affect this, you should be bringing them forward.
As a single commissioner, you have to it takes 3 to get something done, and at this point, I know I don't have 3 to.
If you had items that you could show were going to affect this budget, I think you'd have 5 commissioners that would look at them if they were significant enough to solve our budget issues. I certainly would. But counting paper clips ain't going to do it.
Was that you, Mr. Olson?
That was.
Okay.
Just a question on the resolution for the 2018 budget. Do we have to amend that before we would approve that?
Well, my suggestion would be is I'm not sure we have a motion to approve it yet, but if we do, it would be under the,
Based on 5.5.
Based upon the previous item, you would have to
Yeah, I thought that's what you.
amend numbers in the resolution to reflect the action previously taken.
Yeah, you were working on 6.12, right, which was the
Yes,
the
right.
levy. So that's the levy resolution, which
Right.
would have to be
So that's
amended.
going to affect your numbers under revenue and expenditures on
Yes.
on this here, so.
Or-
Okay. And that probably will take nothing more than amending the revenues,
Right.
yeah.
It's
on the
just a
revenue side.
couple line items where the property tax revenue is.
Exactly. So a motion to approve that would be conditioned upon those changes being made. Did you make a motion, Greg?
No, I was just asking them if we had to, because the resolution is stated
Right.
as such, do we
Right.
have to?
Just
that'd be
say
like
to
the
pass the budget with the reflecting the amended tax levy.
Right. Commissioner Kowalski.
Yeah, I just did kind of a quick sum here, and at 5.5%, we will be spending roughly 771,000 out of the reserves. So that's not in as revenues or expenditure, but that's just an information. Yeah.
Well, the change in the revenue has to be reflected, though, in this
Right.
resolution.
Yeah, the change in the revenue would have to go
Right.
down. But the bottom number, the total will be lower and the expenditures will be the same.
Yes.
Right.
And we'll be spending 770,951 out of reserves.
So I'll just make the motion to approve the 2018 budget based on a 5.5% levy increase rather than a 6% levy increase indicated in our packet.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Jacobs, seconded by Commissioner Olson, to approve the resolution conditioned upon it being changed to reflect the 5.5% levy increase instead of 6%. Okay. Any questions, concerns? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1. Okay, the next item is 7.1, I believe, which is the, receive the monthly finance and budget update for November 2017. I would call on Mr. Moga.
We'll go through the cash flow for the month of November. Beginning cash was 11.3, actual revenues were 5.1, actual expenses were 1.2, ending cash in the general fund was 15.2. For the whole year, we started out the beginning of the year at 15.4 for beginning cash. Actual revenues were 15.5 million, actual expenses were 15.6, ending cash is 15 million point two. The variance this year is a negative 145, 252.29 compared to last year's 597, 174. Overall, with the funds that are being presented, this year's variance is a negative 1.3 compared to last year's negative 1.2. I wanted to point out community services, negative cash flow again, we're in the negative. There will be a resolution coming forward, first part of January to make that, to bring that to zero. But we'll wait probably another week or so before we do that. And the other thing is the highway, you can see that there's a big variance from last year to this year. That's causing some of the variance last year. It's going from a 980, basically $1 million down to 25,000. Any questions on this document? If not, we'll go to the summary cash flow. Summary cash flow starts out with 21 million for the beginning cash. Actual revenues were 35.8. Actual expenses were 37.3. Ending cash in the funds that are being presented is 19.6. The variances, as you can see, are the same as the previous document. The only thing that's a little different there is I do pull out the recycling fund, so there's a difference of the 127 compared to the last sheet. Any questions on that document? Otherwise, we will go to the last one, which is the budget. Budget at this point for November is 92%. Looking at the funds that are being presented on this document, the only one that's over is the human services. They're at 99.51 at the present time. They've been running high for, I think, the whole year. So they will come in still, because there's another month to go through. They will actually be over that 100%. And the other item that I wanted to point out is our interest. We have 164,488 that was actually earned to date. We budgeted 115, so we're doing better than what we had budgeted. But again, I always mention that this is a very low number compared to what we used to bring in interest years past. Any other questions on this document? If not, thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
I do have a question.
Commissioner.
Okay, so we made some more in interest. Does that go into reserves, or does that go into the general fund, or
It's
are we
in the
accounting?
general fund, so it is going into the general fund. If the general fund actually ends up where we have more revenues than expenses, it'll go into the reserves. If it actually is the opposite, where we have more expenses than revenue, then actually that's where we're using money out of the reserve. So this is actually going into the total amount. It's going to help at the very end to either add more or take less out.
The next item is 7.2, provide direction regarding litigation against opioid distributors. County Attorney Sonneman.
Oh, I just turned my sign around. That's funny. Okay. Well, I can make this really short or really long, and I'm sure we all want to make it short. I did that, yeah.
Get out, enjoy the weather.
Yeah, get home and get hot cocoa and warm up. I did provide a pretty lengthy memo as well as attachments about statistics, both nationally but specifically Minnesota, and comparing greater Minnesota to Metro, just to show some of the differences. But the actual, I mean, both figures are rising. So the opioid crisis is not limited to the Metro. And certainly, as we just saw in the budget, with the 10% difference between revenues and expenses through November, I would say anecdotally, a lot of that is for out-of-home placement with children in protection, and we've seen that really since the synthetic epidemic, I'll call it, in 2011 and forward. So, as I said in my memo, I am suggesting that the board consider joining the litigation that other counties have actually taken steps to do by hiring law firms that are offering their services at no cost to the counties. And this is very similar to what happened in the tobacco litigation in terms of seeking costs for expenses that have been caused by the use of, well, at least in tobacco, it was tobacco, but here it's the manufacturers who were giving information about how the drugs weren't as addictive as they turned out to be, and also distributors who were distributing way too much to doctors and other medical providers. One of the items that I had researched but I didn't provide tonight, and I could have given you a trailer of an Oscar-nominated documentary about Huntington, West Virginia, which is the epicenter of the opioid crisis, where the death rate is, I think it was 30%. It's just incredible how much prescription drugs are being given out, and there's lines of people getting their drugs in this little town in West Virginia. And that's just one kind of example of how bad it's gotten there, and it costs for the human services costs, it's law enforcement, prosecution, costs to children and families. So, in short, what I'm asking you to consider, because you also, I think Commissioner Ward had brought it up, that this was discussed at the Association of Minnesota Counties. So providing you with this information, what we're asking tonight is really to give the administration and my office direction as to whether you want to explore the possibility of proceeding on this, and have us talk to several of the law firms that have been listed in my memo. I did catch up with Hennepin County at the Association of Minnesota County Attorneys, and talked with David Brown, who is the chief deputy of that office, and he explained to me that they went with the Briol firm, it's called. That was the one that's listed number one on my memo of outside counsel, Briol and Benson and Motley and Rice, because they have had national experience and actually successful litigation in other states. So they're well practiced in this area. But the other three also have met with, as I indicated, a meeting in October 30th. I didn't have a chance to go up there for that meeting, but the outcome of that was that several of the county attorney offices have recommended and their boards have selected the firms to go forward. So I'm available for questions, and it's kind of telling. I shared this report with our Community Outreach and Diversity Committee of the CJCC, because I was thinking of putting on or suggesting that we put on a educational event, because the Huntington, West Virginia documentary actually has an opportunity to, they provide a service, the producers, where you can have a home showing or home screening, meaning they'll come to your community and show the film and then have a community discussion. But if you note on page 139 of the packet, Winona County has one of the highest death rates, 33 for number of opioid deaths between the years 2000 and 2015. Those are serious numbers. So, and in just informal conversations that we've had, like in drug court team meetings, it's come up where people have been rescued from an overdose with the,
Narcan?
thank you, I can't pronounce it right. So it's happening. It's just not, obviously reported, and but it would certainly be something that would help us, if we're successful, cover some of the costs that the county has experienced over the last few years. If the litigation is not successful, according to my colleagues, these law firms will not charge anything. And those are the kind of questions we want to, get into depth with the law firms, like exactly how does this work? So, so anyways, there you have it.
I have a question, because when you talk to the sheriff and the police community and everything, they say we don't have such an opioid problem here. And we have drugs. We have lots of drugs. We have meth and heroin and all this stuff. But everybody says, no, we don't. So I guess I'm questioning the 33, of course, now that is from, 2000 to
It's
2015.
right. It's
is that
over
by autopsy? How do we know? Do we know they were drug related, or are they truly opioid related, or? I guess how, and part of it is that you see, when you read the obituary column, you see all different ages of people, but, they all, don't mean to sound cruel, they all died peacefully at home. No, that's not true. I mean, if we have 33 deaths, how do we know that they were drug related?
Well, in some cases, we don't know particularly what drug may have caused it. If you recall from the medical examiner's report to the board, which I thought was going to be in here because I submitted it, but those numbers weren't that much. But some are not marked as death from overdose. They're marked as suspicious death or something, in terms of.
So that's going to be very difficult to hold a drug company. I mean, the facts are, we haven't collected them yet.
Well, and that's the other part that we have to collect. And actually, I sent this agenda piece to Jill Johnson, who's the public health director now, and I sent it to Heather Johnson, who I haven't met yet. So hi there, Heather. But I think that Jill had sent me back an email, and I don't have it with me. I don't think oh yeah, I do. See, I'm really prepared tonight. Okay. That they would be able to maybe compile some of the numbers, particularly like from ambulance calls. We also have information on our data bank called LETG, if you remember that, that reports that we can cull information as to what was the nature of the call. It's going to take some digging, but I think...
digging is time, so does your office have I mean, that would be, the burden of that would be on Winona County.
That's right, and that's part of what I wrote in here in the memo, is that the law firms aren't going to do all that digging, but, and I see Heather kind of going through her stuff here, but Jill had said something in her email about that we may be able to get that kind of information in the public health data, talk to the medical examiner's office, cull through things. Also, the increase in the child protection numbers that we've had.
But will it have to be, and yes, this has been discussed at a lot of different meetings that I've been to the last 6 months and where we're going with this. And I'm sorry, our big county friends, they're almost like taking an attorney on staff and putting them on this project, which makes me a little nervous. I don't have that luxury of staff. And they related to the tobacco industry, the lawsuit of the tobacco, but that was the state of Minnesota. We did not individually have to come up with all that information.
Right, but this is different in that each county that joins and when I say joins the lawsuit, it would be consolidated most likely in federal court, as I've indicated in the memo, either in Ohio and, I forget the other state, but because of the fact that a lot of these manufacturing companies are obviously not in the state of Minnesota, so there's some federal jurisdiction issues they'll ask it to be in federal court. But if there is a success in this litigation, it would not go to the state of Minnesota. It would go to each individual county that was part of that litigation. So as a percentage, I mean, one of the, and again, this is something to explore with the law firms if you give us the direction to go and do that, is to talk, for instance, to, I mean, I have good relations with Hennepin County, and even though, yes, they are a large entity to themselves, we have good personal relationships in terms of that professional relationship of if we go with, say, the same firm, which, well, I can withhold my recommendation, but I would, encourage you to think about joining up with some of the other larger counties, because they've actually been able to help us in other areas too. And Ramsey County, for instance, Pete Orpett, who's the Washington County attorney, he's a big proponent of this, and he's always willing to help us on many other areas in work. So it's something that the County Attorneys Association has discussed. We discussed it at our annual meeting, and we all work together as we like to say, brothers and sisters on this. So I think that there's a good possibility that because it's all going to be consolidated most likely in federal court, that these firms that are working for the counties will probably work together in that sense, because they all have the same goal, which is to seek compensation on various legal theories for the governmental entities that have experienced the costs as the consequences.
Consolidating things more in the future.
Well, that's what I've been told, and that's why I put it in the memo about that it's most likely this would be consolidated in a federal court, because it covers all jurisdictions in terms of there's no medical manufacturing, or I'm sorry, a pharmaceutical manufacturer in the state of Minnesota that would be involved. And they have a huge distribution network.
So what do you see the risks and the exposure to Winona County in saying, yes, we should go ahead with this?
Well, and that's what I want to talk, if you give us the preliminary direction, I'm not asking you to make a decision tonight that, yes, we will go forward and file suit. I'm asking you to allow my office and administration, Administrator Fritz, going forward to have meetings with these law firms. I mean, I've received some solicitations, unsolicited, I'll say, in my office.
They're out there beating the bushes.
Yeah, it's not one of these four firms, but so it would be asking them, okay, what are the risks? And I would want to talk to MCIT about it too, and call them and find out, how are they handling it? Because some of the counties that have joined in the litigation, and when I say joined in, I don't mean that they're consolidating their cases together yet, but that they would be MCIT counties as well. So, we'd want to make all those inquiries and then present you with a recommendation and all those, as much as the information that we can get as to risks, advantages, how easy it might be to get data. Ms. Johnson and I have a meeting tomorrow, and we could talk about that.
When you start asking, if we give you the go-ahead to ask, okay, are you going to go after the medical doctors and you're going to go after the insurance companies? Because it's not just the distributors that are causing the problem. A lot of it is yes, they told the doctors that this was okay stuff. It was not addictive. But the doctors are the one who writes the prescription. So this was a question that was asked at one of our meetings, and it was kind of like, we haven't thought about that yet.
Well, I guess locally I wouldn't recommend that, because the doctors here have actually been to our meetings for CJCC and talked about what they're doing to prevent overdosing.
Doing a much
They're
better
doing,
job.
right,
Yes.
and I think I refer in here to the strategic plan that the state has started now in terms of trying to minimize that overprescribing. Right.
Change their rules.
But, you know, the point of these lawsuits is not to go against the doctors and the medical community that's prescribing it. It is to file suit against the manufacturers and the distributors who are advising the doctors, the medical profession, okay, these are okay.
That's changed too.
Yeah, so, well, and that's the point of the litigation is and again, several of these law firms that I've listed here have been successful in other states and have reached settlements on behalf of those.
Do they need to be domestic producers? We get a lot of drugs coming in from other countries.
You know, I don't know, I know there's, right, and they've purchased, there are international companies. So again, those are the kind of questions that I'd ask the law firms, because especially the ones that have actually done this already would have that information. And what I have is what I've been able to research, but also what the County Attorneys Association has done on behalf of its members to provide this information, so I can then provide it to you.
Commissioner Jacob? Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, you were, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, since this is like step one, this would authorize you or direct you with your staff and with the administration to gather more data and then bring it back to us to see what the final decision would be.
It would be more so to talk to the law firms and gather that information, find out the extent of the data that they need and how much, time that would take for us to do. As I indicated, there's still time to do this. Nobody in Minnesota has actually filed suit yet. So it is a process, and you're right, this would just be asking you to allow us to take that first step to explore the possibility of litigation.
I have a question about the data. I think this is very helpful, this package of data. On page 139, it shows from the year 2000 to the year 2015 that Winona County had 33 opioid deaths. And then on page 137, I'm looking at the okay, I see where I was going wrong. I was looking at the number for 2015 on the second chart on the bottom.
Right, the
where it shows
95.
Opioid deaths in 2015 were 95. So I was connecting those two, saying we had 33 of those, but that's not correct.
It's the sum, right,
Yeah.
of the 15 years of
We had
data.
33 of the sum of those. Okay.
Yep.
I still think these are significant data that we can use with our meetings with the legislators, because it is directly tied into our out-of-home placement costs. Over the holidays, I visited with my niece, who is a third, fourth, and fifth grade teacher in a small town in southwestern Ohio. She's about 15 miles from the Ohio River, so she's in the Ohio River Valley.
Is that just north of West Virginia, right?
Yeah, you cross, you cross, we were in Pittsburgh, and you drive through West Virginia to get to Ohio at that point. And she was saying that this is her first year teaching there. They moved there in May, and she was saying the incredible impact this is having on their local community, between out-of-home placements, between fractured families, between grandparents raising children, whether legally decided or not, and just all of the upheavals within those families. And I just think this is a very cautious approach for us to consider reducing that kind of impact here, so we never get to that level. But yet, within our own levels, we have significant costs in some of those categories, so this would help. So I'd be in favor of the motion.
Commissioner Jacob.
Yeah, I too think it makes sense. We've got people on both ends of the system here that are being damaged. First of all, we want to put a stop to opioid abuse, and if we do nothing, we're doing nothing. On the other hand, we've got our taxpayers who are having to be responsible for those people. So it seems like both sides of the issue, we need to help those people, we need to help the taxpayer. I don't believe we'd be doing a fair service if we didn't approve to look into this farther.
I agree. Commissioner Ward.
Well, I would say let's, by consensus, give staff the permission to move ahead, to bring more information back as it is obtained, to make a, is that what you're looking for, Attorney Sonneman, just consensus?
Right, provide direction, and ask that we bring this back to you with that review.
Definition.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Okay.
You don't need a motion for that?
You
Or?
want a motion, just consensus?
It's
Because
on
we
our
don't have
agenda.
anything concrete to,
Yeah, you're not actually,
Okay.
A motion to give direction to Attorney Sonneman?
okay, I'll move to give, I want to tell Attorney County where to go with this project, yes. We would like more definitive information as to the consequences of, proceeding with a lawsuit.
Second.
Second, yeah,
Third.
whatever.
We have the motion that Marcia just made, which was kind of lengthy, but I think gathering more information and bring it back with a recommendation in the future. Does that sum it up?
Yep.
Seconded by Olson, right? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Commissioner Ward.
Before we leave that topic, I don't know how many people are aware, but Minnesota Department of Health has what they call the opioid dashboard. And it's a web-based page, and Heather probably, it's relatively new, opioid dashboard. It's talking about, use, misuse, overdoses, death prevention, education. I mean, this is a multi-pronged problem that has to be attacked from many, many different aspects. And one of the big terms they use now is, consequent management. If you start using this stuff, what are the consequences, not only to you as an individual, but to your community and your extended family and society? So it is. So if you have time, just go to Minnesota Department of Health and type in opioid dashboard. They've got a lot of resources there.
Okay, under committee reports and communications, Mr. Fritz, I believe you had one.
I just want to take the opportunity to welcome our new Community Services Director, Heather Johnson, and for those of you that haven't met her, here she is, and also to let although the community probably can't see her, but to introduce her to the community as well.
Welcome.
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 Any other items? There was nothing on the list, so.
I think
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Steve did.
Yeah,
Okay.
item, I've been contacted by a number of citizens that, so anyhow, I have a statement I want to read here after these citizens contacted me. I want to assure the community that Winona County is an equal opportunity employer. I want to clarify that any appointments I make or recommend are based on that individual's qualifications, competency, performance, and willingness to serve. My appointments are not based on gender, age, race, creed, religion, or skin color. I want to thank all the people who have served on our many boards and committees in Winona County over the years and assure those people that they are appointed based on their competency and qualifications. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments? Hearing none, we're adjourned.
You're not going to have a motion?
Oh, sorry.
I don't think you need a motion to adjourn, really, technically, I think.
Yeah, technically.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Kavesi to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.